Luckily, a lot of my family are West Country. My grandparents lived in Cornwall. I got auntie, uncle in Devon, and we used to always do our family holidays. Road trip down to Cornwall.
Fans of Wheeler Dealers were stunned when news spread about a strange discovery at the quiet countryside homestead of Ant Anstead. At first, it seemed like a normal day around the property, with family visiting and work being done as usual. But hidden away on the land was something no one expected. The surprising find quickly turned into a moment that left his entire family speechless. What exactly was uncovered at Ant's homestead? And why did it shock everyone who saw it? The creation of Wheeler Dealers. The story of Wheeler Dealers actually began many years earlier. When the show first premiered in October 2003 on the Discovery Channel in the United Kingdom, no one involved could have imagined how successful it would eventually become. The original hosts were Mike Brewer, an experienced car trader known for his sharp bargaining skills.
So it's $14,000.
Yes.
Hold out your hand. Thank you very much. I just bought myself a VW Splitty.
And Ed China, a tall and somewhat quirky mechanic whose deep mechanical knowledge quickly made him stand out.
Now, because we haven't resprayed the outside of this van, it's even more important that it looks its absolute best.
The show followed a very simple formula. Buy a car for a low price, repair and improve it, and then sell it for a profit. While many other car programs already existed at the time, Wheeler Dealers offered something refreshingly different. For instance, the famous car show Top Gear focused heavily on entertainment, expensive supercars, and dramatic stunts. In contrast, Wheeler Dealers focused on practical, affordable cars that ordinary people could actually imagine owning and repairing. Viewers did not need enormous amounts of money to enjoy the show. Many fans felt inspired to try similar projects themselves in their own garages. The chemistry between Mike Brewer and Ed China also played a huge role in the show's early success. Mike handled the buying and selling side of the business, using his negotiation skills to find good deals. Ed, on the other hand, carefully handled the mechanical work, breaking down every repair step by step. Some of the earliest episodes featured classic and well-loved cars such as the Porsche 924, the Ford Capri, and the Mini Cooper. These vehicles were popular choices because they carried a strong sense of nostalgia while still being realistic restoration projects for everyday enthusiasts. By the middle of the 2000s, Wheeler Dealers had built a large and loyal audience. The show was no longer just popular in the United Kingdom. Viewers around the world had begun to take notice. Recognizing the program's growing international appeal, Discovery decided to distribute it more widely. Soon, audiences in the United States, Europe, and Asia were watching the show and becoming fascinated by the combination of bargain hunting and mechanical restoration. Among the hosts, Ed China quickly became one of the most beloved figures. His calm personality and patient explanations made even complicated repairs feel approachable. Unlike many car shows that skipped over technical details, Wheeler Dealers embraced them. Ed was never afraid to get his hands dirty. Entire segments of the show might focus on him removing an engine, rebuilding a suspension system, or diagnosing a complex mechanical problem. As he worked, he explained everything clearly and simply so viewers could follow along. This honesty and educational style became the true heartbeat of the show. People did not watch only for entertainment. They also watched to learn. Many fans treated the program almost like a mechanical classroom. However, as the show continued to grow, new challenges began to appear. Expanding to international audiences meant higher expectations, larger budgets, and more complicated production schedules. Creating a single episode was no longer just about finding a car and fixing it. It required careful planning, detailed scheduling, and smooth cooperation between everyone involved in the production. Behind the scenes, differences in creative vision sometimes led to tension. According to people familiar with the production, occasional disagreements arose between Mike Brewer and Ed China. Much of this tension came from their different priorities. Mike focused heavily on the deals, the pacing of the show, and keeping the episodes entertaining for viewers. Ed, meanwhile, was deeply committed to showing every important detail of the mechanical work. At the same time, the network itself began pushing for changes. As production costs increased, Velocity, later rebranded as Motor Trend in the United States, wanted to simplify and shorten the workshop segments. Their goal was to make the show more efficient and reduce expenses. For the network executives, the change seemed practical, but for Ed China, it threatened the very integrity of the program. He believed that removing the detailed repair explanations would strip away the educational value that made the show special. This disagreement eventually led to one of the most significant turning points in the history of wheeler dealers. Why did Ed China decide to leave? Was there an internal conflict? Let's find out. Ed China's departure. After 13 years and 14 seasons, something happened on Wheeler Dealers that many fans once believed would never occur. The show's much-loved mechanic, Ed China, announced that he was leaving the series.
Yes, I'm afraid it's true, and I'm really sorry. After 13 years of making Wheeler Dealers, I'm now going to be leaving the show.
For viewers who had followed the program for years, the news felt almost unbelievable. Ed had become more than just a presenter. To many fans, he was the heart and soul of the show. His calm personality, deep technical knowledge, and clear explanations in the workshop were a big part of what made the series special. Because of this, the idea that the show would continue without him seemed almost impossible to imagine. When Ed explained why he decided to step away, his reasons surprised many people.
On Velocity's first attempt at producing the show, they found Wheeler Dealers too difficult to make, at least in its current format.
According to him, the production team wanted to make changes that would reduce the amount of time spent on the workshop repairs. Their goal was to shorten those segments in order to save money and speed up production. But Ed strongly disagreed with this idea. He believed that the detailed repair work shown in the workshop was the very thing that made the show unique. Fans didn't just want to see a car bought and sold, they wanted to see exactly how it was fixed. They enjoyed learning about the tools, the techniques, and the clever solutions used to bring old cars back to life. To Ed, cutting down those repair segments meant losing the authenticity of the show. It would feel rushed and less genuine. In his view, it would mean cutting corners, something he was simply not willing to do. So instead of giving in to the pressure, he made a difficult decision. He chose to walk away. His departure left a huge gap in the show. Many viewers were shocked, and some were deeply upset. Online discussions quickly exploded across social media. Fans argued about what had happened and who was responsible. Some viewers even threatened to stop watching the program entirely. Unfortunately, the situation also created problems for the show's longtime car dealer and co-host, Mike Brewer. Even though he had not been the one who made the production decisions, many angry fans directed their frustration toward him. According to reports from motoringbox.com, Mike began experiencing harassment in his everyday life after Ed left the show. In a public statement, Mike explained that the backlash had gone far beyond simple criticism online. He said the situation had started affecting many people around him, not just himself. He said the abuse he and his family had received because of Ed's departure was extremely difficult. It didn't only impact him, it also affected the production crew, his friends, loyal fans, and even the charities he supported.
Do my best for charity, and those charities at the same time are reading that I'm a Nazi or, I'm a murderer.
His employees and employers were also caught up in the negativity. Mike revealed that people had confronted him in many different places. Strangers approached him on the street, in restaurants, inside supermarkets, and even at car shows. Some of these encounters were uncomfortable and aggressive. All of this, he said, happened simply because Ed had decided to leave the program. Mike emphasized that Ed had already explained his reasons, and viewers were free to form their own opinions about the situation. Despite the controversy, Mike remained determined to continue the show. He kept hosting Wheeler Dealers, hoping the series could survive the storm and move forward. And that was exactly when a new face entered the picture. So, how did Anstead come on board? Did he get there by merit? Let's find out. The emergence Ant Anstead. Ant was not completely new to television, but to many loyal viewers of Wheeler Dealers, he was an unfamiliar figure. Fans wondered who he was and whether he could possibly fill the enormous shoes left behind by Ed China. Ant was born in 1979 in Hertfordshire, England, and his life story was far from ordinary. Before he ever appeared on television, he had already experienced several very different careers. As a young man, he joined the police force and became one of the youngest armed police officers in the United Kingdom. It was a demanding and dangerous job that required discipline and courage. Later, he followed another passion: sports. For a period of time, he played semi-professional football, but even that was not the path he ultimately chose. Cars had always fascinated him. Eventually, Ant decided to pursue his love for building and customizing vehicles. He began restoring and modifying cars, developing strong mechanical skills along the way. His talent and enthusiasm caught the attention of television producers. This led to his first major TV opportunity, co-hosting the show For the Love of Cars alongside actor Philip Glenister. The program allowed Ant to show both his mechanical abilities and his natural on-screen charm. By the time 2017 arrived and he joined Wheeler Dealers, Ant had already proven that he could be both a skilled craftsman and an engaging presenter. Even so, stepping into the show was not easy. Replacing someone as beloved as Ed China was an extremely difficult position. Fans were still emotional about Ed's departure, and many were skeptical about any newcomer. When Ant first appeared on the program, the pressure on him was enormous. He had two major challenges. First, he needed to win over viewers who were unsure about him. Second, he had to respect the legacy that Ed had built while still bringing his own style to the role. The overall format of the show stayed mostly the same. Mike Brewer continued searching for interesting used cars to buy, while Ant took them into the workshop to repair and improve them. However, the feeling of the show began to change slightly. Ant's workshop segments often showed a different kind of energy. He tended to be more experimental and creative when working on cars. Sometimes he tried bold modifications or unusual solutions during the restoration process. Because of his background as a custom car builder, his approach was different from Ed's extremely careful and methodical style. Naturally, fans noticed this change right away. Some viewers loved Ant's enthusiasm and hands-on attitude. They enjoyed watching his creativity and the way he brought his own personality into the workshop. Others, however, felt that something was missing. They believed the show now contained less technical detail than before, which had been one of Ed China's trademarks. For Ant Anstead, this created a difficult balancing act. He had to stay true to who he was, while also respecting the expectations of a show that had built its reputation over many years. In many ways, he wasn't just fixing cars. He was trying to repair the relationship between the show and its passionate fans. But how was his journey on Wheeler Dealers? Was it an easy ride? Let's take a closer look. Ant's Wheeler Dealers journey. Ant's difficulties on Wheeler Dealers did not end when he stepped away from the garage floor, away from the cameras and the tools. Another challenge quietly followed him everywhere he went: the lasting legacy of Ed China. For more than a decade, Ed had become almost inseparable from the identity of the show. His calm explanations, deep mechanical knowledge, and detailed repairs had earned him enormous respect among viewers. Because of this, when Ant Anstead stepped in to replace him, he faced an enormous shadow. Every bolt he tightened, every engine he opened, and every repair he attempted was constantly measured against the standard that Ed had already set. Many loyal fans had followed Wheeler Dealers for years, and some of them found it difficult to accept such a big change. For them, Ed was not just a mechanic on the show, he was the heart of the workshop. As a result, Ant had to work incredibly hard to win over viewers who were already skeptical about the new direction of the series. For some fans, it simply took time. Others never fully changed their minds. At the same time, Ant was also dealing with production rules that limited what he could actually do on screen. Even after Ed's departure, the production team continued pushing for shorter and more streamlined workshop segments. Their goal was to keep the pace of the show moving quickly and reduce production costs. But this change had a side effect. It meant that Ant often could not go as deep into the mechanical work as Ed once had. In the earlier seasons, viewers were used to watching long and detailed repairs where every step was explained carefully. Those scenes were not only entertaining, but also educational. Many fans loved learning how the cars actually worked. Now, however, some of those deeper technical moments were shortened or skipped entirely. For viewers who valued the teaching aspect of the show, this was frustrating. And for Ant himself, it was a limitation he had very little control over. As if that was not enough, he also had to guide the show through a period of major change. By the late 2010, car culture was evolving rapidly. The rise of platforms like YouTube and social media had begun transforming how audiences consumed car content. Online creators were producing fast-paced videos filled with quick builds, dramatic transformations, and high-energy storytelling. To remain relevant in this new environment, wheeler dealers needed to adapt. The show could not remain exactly the same as it had been before. Changes had to happen, and Ant found himself right in the middle of that transition. Despite the pressure and criticism, he brought something new and exciting to the program. Ant's background was very different from Ed's. While Ed was known for extremely detailed restorations, Ant had spent much of his career working on custom builds and creative car projects. Because of this, his approach to vehicles was often more imaginative. Instead of simply restoring a car back to its original factory condition, he sometimes explored ways to improve it with clever upgrades and practical modifications. This gave the show a slightly different style, one that focused not just on preservation, but also on innovation. For many viewers, this fresh perspective was refreshing. They enjoyed seeing cars transformed in ways that made them more modern, more usable, or simply more exciting. Another thing that helped the show was Ant's on-screen partnership with Mike Brewer. The dynamic between the two presenters felt lighter and more playful than the previous pairing. While the Brewer-China partnership had been more focused and methodical, the Brewer-Anstead duo often shared jokes and a relaxed sense of humor that gave the show a different atmosphere. Not everyone was convinced by the new chemistry, but plenty of fans appreciated the change. Over time, many viewers began to enjoy the more casual and energetic style the two brought to the screen. Perhaps Ant's biggest contribution was something less visible, but incredibly important. He helped keep the show alive during a very uncertain period. When Ed China left, many fans believed the series might collapse entirely. Losing such a central figure could easily have ended the program. But Ant stepped in during that difficult moment and helped the show continue moving forward. Thanks to his presence, Wheeler Dealers maintained its momentum, attracted new viewers, and continued reaching audiences around the world. Still, reactions to Ant's time on the show remained mixed. Some longtime fans argued that he did not offer the same level of technical depth that Ed had provided. Others, however, admired his creativity, his enthusiasm, and his approachable personality. Social media often made the criticism louder. Groups of vocal fans frequently posted comments expressing disappointment about the changes to the show. Yet, at the same time, Ant steadily gained a loyal group of supporters. Many viewers understood the difficult situation he had stepped into. They recognized that replacing such a beloved figure was almost impossible, and they respected the effort he made to carry the show forward. His friendly personality, genuine love for cars, and visible passion for the craft gradually helped soften some of the early resistance. Then, in 2020, Ant surprised many people with another unexpected announcement. He revealed that he would be leaving Wheeler Dealers, bringing his own chapter of the series to a close. By that point, however, new opportunities were already opening up for him in television. He had begun hosting projects such as Master Mechanic and Ant Anstead Master Mechanic, along with other automotive programs like Ant Anstead's Building Cars. For the show, his departure created yet another moment of uncertainty. It was the second major shakeup in a relatively short period of time. But what most viewers never realized was that these public changes were only part of the story. Behind the scenes, the production was dealing with a number of challenges and internal issues that the audience rarely noticed at all. What losses did he incur? Were they personal or financial loss? Let's find out. Wheeler Dealers' Hidden Losses. For more than 2 decades, the TV show Wheeler Dealers has entertained classic car fans around the world. The idea of the show is simple but exciting. The team buys old or affordable cars that need work, repairs them, improves their condition, and then sells them again in the hope of making a profit.
$19,000. It's a great offer. Make it $20,000, you've got yourself a deal.
On television, everything looks fun and easy. Viewers see smiling faces, mechanics in oil-stained overalls, and the thrilling sound of engines coming back to life. But behind the cameras, things have not always been so smooth. While audiences enjoyed watching Mike Brewer negotiate clever deals and Ed China perform his creative mechanical fixes, the real situation was sometimes far more complicated. The show often faced financial losses, production challenges, and a growing struggle between creating entertaining television and making practical business decisions. At its core, the idea behind Wheeler Dealers is simple: buy a car cheaply, repair it within a budget, and sell it for more money. However, reality often turned out to be much harsher than the plan suggested. Across many seasons of the show, quite a few of the restored cars were actually sold at a loss instead of making a profit. One early example appeared in Season 1, Episode 12, when the team purchased a Ford Capri Laser 1.6 for only £400. They gave themselves a repair budget of £1,000 and decided to keep the work simple. The team repainted the fenders, installed new suspension bushings, and added fresh laser decals to restore the car's original look. In total, the repairs cost £945. When the car was finally ready, it looked clean and refreshed on camera. However, when it was sold for £700, the numbers told a different story.
£700 I want for it. So that's what I want, 700 quid.
Instead of making money, the team lost £245. For viewers at home, it looked like a successful restoration, but financially, it showed that enthusiasm for the project had been stronger than the profit. Sometimes the losses became even bigger, especially when the team took risks on unusual vehicles. One example was the Suzuki SJ410, which was known in the United States as the Suzuki Samurai. The little off-roader seemed like a fun and adventurous project. The team bought it for £2,000 and set aside another £2,000 for restoration work. However, when the time came to sell the vehicle, things did not go as planned. The SJ410 only sold for £500, leaving the team £770 in the red. It was a painful reminder that not every interesting or quirky car is valuable in the marketplace. This slowly became a pattern. The more unusual or nostalgic a car was, the bigger the financial risk seemed to be. Take the Volkswagen Transporter T3, for example. The classic van brought back memories for many viewers. It looked charming and full of character, almost like a small bus from another era. The team bought it cheaply for just £250, which seemed like a great deal at first. By the time the work was finished, they had spent £1,270 on the vehicle. When the van eventually sold for £500, the team had lost another £770. For fans watching the episode, the Transporter was a nostalgic trip into the past. But for the crew working behind the scenes, it was another reminder that emotional value and market value are often very different things. Even expensive classic cars sometimes failed to bring the profits the team hoped for. In Season 7, the show featured a Mercedes-Benz 190E2.3-16 Cosworth.
Mercedes 190E Cosworth that I got for £2,700.
A car famous for its connection to racing history and legendary drivers. Because of its reputation and motorsport background, it seemed like a safe investment. The team bought the car for £2,700 and spent £885 fixing and improving it. Everything appeared promising, but when the final sale happened, the car sold for £3,500, which meant the team actually lost £85 overall. It was a disappointing result that proved even prestigious vehicles do not always guarantee profit. Another project followed a similar path. The Range Rover Vogue SE needed several improvements, including repairs to the roof lining, servicing of the gearbox, and the installation of a new tailgate. Despite all that work, the project ended with a loss of £35. While that number may sound small, it showed how constant financial pressure existed on the show. Even minor losses slowly chipped away at the main promise of the series, turning passion for cars into profit. Sometimes, however, the biggest challenge was not financial, it was emotional. One example was the Jaguar XK8 convertible.
We're working on a sublime Jaguar XK8. Really nice place to be. It's very serene in it.
The elegant British sports car had a timeless and sophisticated style that made it difficult for the team to treat it as just another business deal. They bought the XK8 for £6,000, and repairs eventually pushed the total investment to £10,075. When the car was finally sold for £10,000, the team lost only £75. The financial loss was small, but the episode revealed something deeper. Sometimes the mechanics simply fell in love with the cars they worked on. The XK8 had a classy charm that made it feel special, and it reminded everyone that these projects were about passion as much as money. However, the most painful loss in the show's history came with the strange and memorable AMC Pacer. Known for its unusual rounded shape and large glass windows, the Pacer had become a symbol of 1970s automotive design. The team bought the car for £3,595, but the restoration quickly became far more expensive than expected. By the time the work was finished, the total cost had risen to £8,930. When the car was finally sold for £4,989, the result was devastating. The team had suffered a massive loss of £3,171. Sometimes nostalgia takes over, and sometimes, despite all the hard work, the numbers simply refuse to add up. How was Anstead's private life? Did he stay married or divorced? Let's find out. Ant Anstead's personal life. Ant Anstead married Louise in 2005.
Ant Anstead's first wife, Louise Story, has remarried.
Long before he became famous on international television. Together, they raised 2 children and created what seemed, from the outside, to be a stable and happy family life. For many years, Louise stood by his side and supported his work. Whether he was spending long hours building cars or slowly becoming more well-known on British television, she remained a steady presence in his life. However, as Ant's career began to grow, things slowly started to change. His job required more travel, longer filming schedules, and more time away from home. The demands of television and car projects became harder to balance with family life. When the show Wheeler Dealers eventually moved its production to the United States, the pressure on their marriage became impossible to ignore. Being away from home for long periods began to take a toll on their relationship. Ant tried to manage everything at once, being a devoted father, a supportive husband, and a hard-working television presenter, but the constant distance slowly weakened the bond he shared with Louise. By 2017, just as his career was gaining global attention, his marriage was quietly falling apart behind the scenes. In 2018, their divorce was officially finalized.
And his first wife, Louise Story, got a divorce in 2017.
While the details of the split remained mostly private, Ant later admitted how painful the experience was for him. The end of a 13-year marriage is never easy, and for someone whose life was becoming more public, the emotional strain felt even heavier. At the same time he was dealing with heartbreak, cameras were still following his life and career. One of the hardest parts of the divorce was the distance it created between him and his children. Because his work required him to live in California for filming, his kids stayed in the United Kingdom with their mother. Simple moments of everyday fatherhood, driving the kids to school, sharing dinner together, or putting them to bed, suddenly became rare experiences that could only happen when he managed to travel back across the Atlantic. This emotional struggle weighed heavily on him. Friends and colleagues noticed that although Ant continued to bring enthusiasm and energy to the workshop, there was often a quiet sadness beneath his cheerful personality. Working on cars helped distract him for a while, but it could never replace the feeling of being close to his children. In interviews, Ant has openly spoken about the guilt he felt for missing important moments in his children's lives. Birthdays, school events, and other milestones passed while he was thousands of miles away. No matter how successful his career became, those lost moments were something he could never fully make up for. It was a painful irony. The same opportunity that brought him financial security and international recognition was also pulling him away from the life he valued most. But the emotional challenges did not end there. If the breakdown of his first marriage was difficult, his next relationship would bring even more public attention. After moving to the United States, Ant began dating Christina Haack, the television star known for the show Flip or Flop. Their relationship began in 2018 and quickly caught the attention of the media. Tabloids closely followed their romance, publishing photos and stories about the couple almost constantly. In 2019, the couple welcomed a son. Ant proudly embraced fatherhood once again and often spoke about how happy he was to expand his family. For a moment, it seemed like he had found stability again. However, the happiness did not last long. Over time, problems began to appear in their relationship. By 2020, Christina publicly announced that they were separating. Unlike his first divorce, which mostly stayed out of the public eye, this breakup happened under intense media attention in the United States. Every development was reported and discussed by celebrity news outlets. For Ant, who was already emotionally wounded from his earlier divorce, the situation brought another wave of heartbreak. So, what are your thoughts on the shocking discovery in Ant Anstead's homestead? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.